Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Well, Fastamai, good evening and welcome to Update this Monday, your roundup of what's been happening on the Isle of Man today. And really, the main news, those changes in the Council of Ministers. They were officially announced this morning. 3 new appointments, 1 minister stepping down to spend more time on constituency issues and 1 minister without a portfolio. What does it all mean? We'll take you through what's happened and the initial reaction. Also tonight, Steam Packet profits and a charity explains why it's closing its shop on Strand Street. As ever, if you'd like to get in touch, you can do so. 166 177 is the text number, or you can email studio@manxradio.com. First, let's join Amy for a roundup of today's main news headlines. Fastamai.
The Chief Minister says he's confident he's now got the right group of people around him to tackle some of the island's most pressing issues. Douglas South MHK Claire Christian is leading health and social care. Douglas North member David Ashford has returned to head up Cabinet Office, and Russians Michelle Hayward is taking on infrastructure. Mr Cannon says he's grateful for the support of those taking on new roles.
It's pleasing that there are people in the Keys that are willing to step up, and I think I'm confident that the group we've got in now will be able to carry on the good work.
Meanwhile, the former Cabinet Office Minister says she's looking forward to applying her energy and time to other matters after resigning from the role. Kate Lord Brennan says she wants to focus on constituency matters but remains supportive and respectful of government, of Mr Cannon as Chief Minister and of the Council of Ministers as a whole. In other news, it's important government helps people to understand the harms caused by drug use and make informed choices, according to the Justice and Home Affairs Minister. It's after a report calling for greater focus on public health instead of criminal justice was backed by Tynwald. Jane Paul Wilson says educating the public is key.
It helps society understand better what are the different harms and what are the different things we can do to help people understand the harms and make informed choices.
All tickets for Peter Kay were sold via an open and fair process, with none held back for staff or off-island residents. The Villa Gaieties released a statement after some of the 2,720 tickets sold on Saturday were relisted at inflated prices on resale platforms like Viagogo. Manx charity Sight Matters has announced it will be closing its shop on Strand Street in Douglas. It says despite best efforts, rising costs of running the store mean it is no longer sustainable to continue its operation. In international news, a 22-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a shooting in West London left an 8-year-old girl and another man with serious injuries. The incident in Ladbroke Grove reportedly involved a gunman opening fire into a car yesterday. At least 17 people, including a number of British nationals, are missing after a tourist boat sank off the coast of Egypt. The vessel was carrying 45 people on a diving trip in the Red Sea. And Microsoft says it's working to fix an issue with its emails and Teams app. Users reported having problems sending messages as well as loading attachments or saving drafts. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the news in full at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Amy. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. A little bit better this evening because it's going to stay dry with clear intervals. A fresh to strong westerly wind that will continue to gradually ease. Minimum temperatures tonight will be around 6 Celsius. Tomorrow then we'll be seeing sunny intervals, just a small risk of 1 or 2 showers. Winds will fall light and maximum temperatures 9. A touch of grass frost tomorrow night maybe, then a quiet and fine day on Wednesday. Sunset this evening, 4 minutes past 4 it was. Sunrise tomorrow morning will be at 7 minutes past 8.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Cannell's Agricultural Supplies have been serving the good folk of the north for over 30 years, supplying homegrown wheats, whole and rolled oats, working clothing, fencing, animal feeds, parts, tools and emergency supplies. Call Julia on 880206 or find Cannell's on Facebook.
Patricia Wild Opticians is celebrating over 30 years of friendly, caring service in Farm Hill and Ramsey. Visit us for professional eye care with stress-free parking. Phone Patricia Wild Opticians on 813 977.
For over 25 years, Langness Maintenance Services have been the block paving specialists, including property maintenance, fencing and landscaping. Fast, reliable and competitive. For a free no-obligation quote, call Paddy on 49667. Langness Maintenance Services, 49667.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio, 5.5 minutes past 5. So, some pretty big political changes today. A new health minister, a new cabinet minister and a minister without portfolio. If you're coming late to all of this, the new holders of those roles, Claire Christian, David Ashford and Tim Crookall, in that order. We're going to talk about what this all means in just a moment. But first, this is how you reacted to the news when it broke on breakfast this morning.
Paul says there's a limited pool of people, but David Ashford should not be back in any role.
It's gonna have to be a different man.
Deborah says a 10-minister block vote is a big worry too. This is because, Sean, just recapping, Tim Crookall moves to the newly created Minister Without Portfolio position.
Yep, which does now make 10 ministers in Comyn, the Chief Minister, the 8 departmental ministers, and also that Minister Without Portfolio.
And an interesting question here from one listener who says Chris Thomas was sacked as a political member for Health for voting against Alfred Cannon during the recent vote of no confidence. Now Claire Christian is in. She also voted against Alf. So what is going on? It's an interesting point because Claire Christian was one of the MHKs who voted against the Chief Minister in that recent vote of no confidence.
So a lot to get our heads round there, and as Ben mentioned, Claire Christian was one of those who voted against the Chief Minister in the recent confidence vote. We'll hear more about that in a moment. Douglas North MHK David Ashford, he was first elected in 2016, so he's now rejoining Comyn to oversee the Cabinet Office. But he hasn't really been as vocal against the Cannon government as his new colleagues, as Siobhan Fletcher reports.
Today's news means Alfred Cannon's administration has now seen a combination of 26 different ministers in the various roles. Now, Douglas South member Claire Christian was first elected in a 2020 by-election. She joins Comyn for the first time in her political career to oversee the island's health and social care services. That's despite being a vocal critic of the Cannon administration. She was one of just 6 MHKs to vote in favour of the vote of no confidence in the Chief Minister 1 month ago. Manx Care has today said it's looking forward to working with the new Health Minister at an important time for the island's health and social care provision. That's despite Miss Christian describing the healthcare body as holding a gun to the head of government after it announced a series of cuts to its services just last month.
From what I understand, it's almost, for me, Manx Care are saying if this is what's going to happen if we don't get the extra funding, and if you don't find that, it's almost, holding a gun to the head of government, really.
Russian member Michelle Haywood was first elected in 2021. She now joins Comyn for the first time in her political career to oversee the island's infrastructure. That's despite being particularly vocal about the department's lack of action on key issues in her constituency. She's made the headlines in recent months for her campaign of guerrilla gardening to highlight the biggest potholes in Port St Mary High Street. So far, she's planted the likes of daffodils in the highway and has previously vowed to install Christmas trees this festive season.
They came down very quickly last time. I planted daffodils to put patches on the holes, but other than that, we don't seem to be getting any movement at all. Myself and the Speaker, Mr Watterson, are due to meet with the DOI to discuss where projects are at shortly, but I'm going to carry on highlighting this until something actually gets done about it.
Dr Haywood has also been vocal about the department's decision to scrap the number 28 bus route to Craignish. She said the DOI's insistence the service was no longer viable was not good enough.
That is Siobhan Fletcher reporting on those new changes that we've been hearing about today. I'm joined in the studio now by John Moss and also our political correspondent Phil Gaughan. John, Phil, there's a lot to digest here. John, you've been out and about, you've been speaking to people. What's the initial reaction that you're getting?
Well, they say you shouldn't speculate, but we're all speculating about the reasons behind this. I mean, Claire Christian voted against Alf Cannon. Was he his choice for this role, or basically has he got to the situation where it had to be Claire Christian? We don't know. When I went out in the streets, a lot of people had a profoundly pessimistic view about the Isle of Man, about where it's going, how the government is doing. There's another 2 years to go. Gloomy, I think they have to say. Interestingly, I did speak to some people who just moved to the island, and they said they found it delightful. They've only been here for 2 weeks. The people who've been here for much longer say that much needs to be done, and much doesn't seem to be done at the moment. Claire Christian, she's going to have to fend off the informed questioning that's going to come at her from Laurie Hooper, of course, the former health minister. Kate Law-Brennan stepping down from the cabinet role to concentrate on her constituency. Will other ministers think, 2 years to go, I wouldn't do my re-election chances much harm if I, in fact, stepped down from having to look at my ministerial portfolio and went about my constituency looking busy in the 2 years coming up the election. Could they be tempted to do that? Just 2 years to go to the election. It's not very much. Tim Crookall, Minister without portfolio, what exactly will he be doing? We don't know. More speculation. Governments don't enjoy people speculating about what's doing. What they like is people in set roles knowing what they're doing and people knowing what they're doing. And there is a whole lot of question marks, a whole flurry of Christmas question marks hanging in the air over this. We must wait and see what happens.
Phil Gorn, what's your assessment?
I think it's a bold move by the Chief Minister. I think many MHKs and political speculators such as John and I were probably thinking that the Chief Minister would struggle to get one extra member to join his team. So the fact that he's got three is quite remarkable. The fact that he's doing something that hasn't been done since probably about 20 years ago, when I think it was the late Eddie Lowy was a minister without portfolio, or it could have been Miles Walker, but effectively they were in that role, which was effectively to sort of give everyone a kind of a G up and say, actually, all this stuff we've been talking about for 3 years, we need to start delivering it now. So in that regard, it may be a really important move.
Sceptics are going to say, though, Phil, that surely that's just to make sure that the collective vote pushes through those crucial things that the Chief Minister needs, because, there's not many people now on the back benches.
You could say that, but it's 10 ministers. There are 14 members of the House of Keys who aren't ministers. You then have a further 9 members of the Legislative Council. All of those have the opportunity to outvote government every time. The interesting thing for me is we have Claire Christian, who is probably right of centre in her politics. You've got Michelle Hayward, who is left of centre in her politics. And that demonstrates, actually, the difficulty that chief ministers have. They have to bring in all shades of political opinion when they're trying to form their Council of Ministers. Otherwise, they will end up getting quite severely criticised.
And Claire Christian and Dr Hayward both have been critical of their respective departments. How difficult is it for them then to come into those departments and lead them from the front?
It'll be interesting, certainly. And of course, David Ashford has been quite vocally critical, but critical in a very diplomatic sort of way.
Can you say that obviously a government owes a lot to the confidence shown by its leader? And you have to say that Alfred Cannon does look confident. He comes out of confidence votes saying that's boosted my popularity in the House of Keys. Yes, I'm going forward to deliver my mandate. He never looks down. He always looks, this may be the military background, he always looks as if, yes, we're going up, we're going to tackle this problem. He doesn't look as if this has depressed him at all.
Have you spoken to any other Tynwald members, Phil, to get an initial reaction from them?
I haven't since the announcement, although I did speak to the Chief Minister on on Thursday after Tynwald had finished. Now, OK, it was a full 3-day sitting, and Tynwald members are not used to that. The Chief Minister seemed quite down and quite jaded when I was speaking to him. So something quite remarkable and dramatic has happened over the course of the weekend, and I'm guessing the Chief Minister will have a broad smile on his face.
One thing that people might talk about, and if we think about Mr Crookall as this minister without a portfolio, he presumably will still be paid a ministerial wage. So where's that money coming from?
Yes, and that is a reasonable question, but I don't think it's a huge amount.
There's a big pot under the stairs, and Tim, I don't know if you've noticed it. You go to a cupboard, and there it is.
In the overall scheme of
clinks
things,
and jingles.
It's not a lot of money, but it is the issue that the Chief Minister.
It's a perception thing, isn't it?
Chief Minister is going to have to get this explained fairly quickly. I would say in the next week or so, he needs to be clear what this is all about. What are the projects that are going to be delivered by Tim Crookall?
Well, Phil, John, thank you very much indeed. A big day politically then on the island with those changes to the Council of Ministers lineup. And as always, we do welcome your thoughts. Andrew and Stephen called the Mannin line this lunchtime to share theirs.
Creating a minister without portfolio, well done, Mr Cannon. So where's the money coming from to pay for that salary? Because allegedly there isn't any. So why not spend the uplift on something that will actually be achievable within Manx Care or some other needy project? Absolutely ridiculous. The only work they should be doing is getting rid of the food bank, and that doesn't need a minister without portfolio. And so this is just endemic, symptomatic of the government that's spending other people's money with no thought.
It was interesting to hear the reshuffle, but I wonder, does anything ever get done? And I'll expand on this, and I just wonder, is this reshuffle just simply keeping the ship of state on a course that hardly anybody supports? I think that a lot of the dissatisfaction within the House of Keys is the island plan, and yet they're trumpeting again with this new reshuffle that we remain committed to the island plan and ensuring its continuity. I don't see. Did you ever vote for? Did you ever see a mandate where it said we're going to have a increased population? Will this reshuffle mean there's going to be any changes in policy?
That is Andrew and Stephen there, who called the Mannin line at lunchtime to share their thoughts on the changes to the Council of Ministers lineup. We're at an interesting point, actually. We've got House of Keys tomorrow, the first time that those ministers are going to be in place. So we wait and see what reaction there is, certainly to any questions that might be directed their way tomorrow. Lots more to come on this, I'm sure. And as ever, 166 177 studio@manxradio.com if you'd like to share any thoughts of yours.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
So the good news is nothing to report on the police pages. If you know any different, do get in touch with us if you're able to do so. Everything okay down at the airport? There's a little bit of a delay at the steam packet. The Manxman, because of the weather, left Heysham at 3:30 and is due to get into Douglas at 7:50. So because of that, it's not going to leave Douglas for Heysham again until 9. Check-in's going to open at 7 and it will close at 8:15. For the very latest on all the traffic and travel, you can go to manxradio.com and click on our Traffic and Travel Hub.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. It is 18.5 past 5. We're going to stay with the steam packet because the group made a profit of £8 million in 2023, as Lewis Foster reports.
But that actually marks a decline on the previous year, in which it recorded a profit of over £11 million. The accounts for the year have been published within the annual director's report. The group says the decline in profits is largely due to a 12.5% increase in operating costs and a below-inflation increase in fares. Freight revenues grew 2.6% despite a 2.8% contraction in HGV meterage, a reflection, the steam packet says, of reduced consumer demand due to the general squeeze on household incomes. It also settled debt obligations of £5.2 million with its parent, the Isle of Man Treasury. Meanwhile, in reserving for the future replacement of Manannan, the group invested £16.4 million in 3-year fixed notes at 4.75% per annum in March 2023. The director's report will go before Tynwald next month. You can find the report in full at manxradio.com.
Lewis Foster reporting there. Now, if you head over to our website, there is a very detailed article just talking about all the Council of Ministers changes that we've been hearing about today. Again, that's also on our social pages if you want to share any of your thoughts as well. Lots more debate, I'm sure, to come about that. And you can also call us number for the out of hours Mannan line, which is 682 631, if you want to leave a message that will be played out on the show. 5:20, the Isle of Man Post Office's retail network is at risk due to the removal or potential removal of a number of services. Now, the chair, Stu Peters, told the Economic Policy Review Committee today that it is indeed a challenging period.
I think it's fair to say that the Post Office is going through great changes. And so almost everything is a challenge as we transition the business away from being a monopoly letters service to being mainly a parcel service. That's been an ongoing process for some years, but you know, it does have its difficulties, it does have its challenges with it. Also the fact that our retail network is at risk in many ways because of the withdrawal of the MyCard pensions payment thing, and also the DOI is talking about removing the vehicle licensing from us. So those are big chunks of our income at the moment, and managing those changes is a challenge to the executive.
Right, so given there are challenges, what have been the greatest successes this year?
Making a profit. Excellent. I would say.
Short and sweet answer there. That is the chair of the Isle of Man Post Office, Stu Peters. He was giving evidence to the Economic Policy Review Committee today. 5:21. Now, the Manx charity Site Matters has announced it'll be closing its shop on Strand Street in Douglas. The store has been on the high street for 9 years, and the doors will close for the final time on Saturday, the 21st of December. Peter Marshall is the charity's marketing and fundraising lead, and he's been talking to Lewis about what has led to this decision.
No, it hasn't been an easy decision to make at all. We've been there for 9 years. It's been a great place for us to raise awareness of our charity, for volunteers to undertake volunteering opportunities, great place for people to buy things as well, and a way for us to raise funds too. So it's been a very difficult decision, but ultimately economic conditions made that decision for us. Like so many charities at the moment, we are not immune from the cost of living crisis that's affecting everyone. And ultimately, that means that the proposition of a retail outlet for a fairly small charity such as us, it's not viable anymore. It's very unfortunate because a lot of staff members and volunteers have put an awful lot of work over the years, and it's been a great place for 9 years. But unfortunately, we've just reached a point where we can't continue.
And is that rising costs associated with the store itself, having that physical presence, or is it charity-wide and all the services?
Well, I wouldn't like to speak on behalf of any other charities, but for us, it's associated with the shop itself. Maintaining a shop is quite expensive now. The cost of overheads have increased, and unfortunately, people are spending less money in the high street too. So that combination has really meant that there was no other option available to us. I think it's worth stressing, though, that this doesn't mean that any of our services are going to be impacted. From our members' point of view, there will be absolutely no change at all in what we deliver to them. It's just from our point of view, we can't sustain the shop at all.
That is Peter Marshall, who is the charity Site Matters marketing and fundraising lead, talking about those economic conditions that have led to the decision to close their charity shop on Strand Street. The final time it'll be open will be Saturday, the 21st of December. Much more to that interview. You can listen to it in full via the Manx Radio newscast, which again you can find at manxradio.com. 5:24. Let's turn to sports news now. Good evening, Darren Timpson.
Good evening. Starting with hockey, and Backers A have been crowned the Mixed Premier League champions after their win over title challengers Vikings A on Saturday. The title match was one of two senior fixtures to be played at the weekend, and Backers sealed the title with a 3-1 victory to win the Premier League unbeaten for the second time in 3 years. Bacchus last won the title in the 2022-23 season with 9 wins and 1 draw. However, this season the Douglas side won all of their games on the way to their season victory. The other game to be played at the weekend was in the Mixed Division 3 as Bacchus Mixed Bucks beat Ramsey Rookies 3-1. In football, Ravens boss Paul Jones has said his side only have themselves to blame after taking the lead, but they're needing to come from behind to draw Pilkington 3-3 in the North West Counties Football League on Saturday. Luke Booth opened the scoring for SC Isle of Man, but 3 first-half goals from the home side meant Jones's team went in at the break 3-1 down. Fortunately for the Manx side, though, Charlie Higgins found the ball with his shoulder from a corner 3 minutes into the second half, and Stephen Whitley then completed the comeback for the away side with 20 minutes to go. The result means FC Isle of Man stay in the playoff places and unbeaten in 6 games. Locally, only 2 Football League matches were played on the island due to the weather on Saturday. St Mary's washed Union Mills away with a 6-0 victory at the Bowl in the Canada Life Premier League. Mark Wolfenden scored 4, with Tyrese Thompson and Sam Gelling also getting on the score sheet. In the Arden and Druggan combination 2, goals from Oliver Lee and Finley Mulligan seal a 2-0 win for Castletown over Douglas Athletic. Elsewhere, the draw for the Railway Cup semi-finals has taken place. Ayr United will play Laxey, while Corinthians face Peel.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. You can find out all about the sports news as well at manxradio.com. And if you haven't checked out the website for a little while, just go to the good news section as well, because there's so much bad news, isn't there? That it's nice to have something a little bit lighter to lift things. So head over to our good news section. We heard about Thomas the cat in Ramsey last week on the programme. There's a lovely photograph of him on the website, and I do understand he may be receiving his chain very shortly. That is all from Update this evening. Thank you very much indeed for your company. As I say, go to manxradio.com for details about all tonight's top stories and also those longer interviews in our newscast section. Coming up next, it's Agenda with Phil Gaughan. He's going to be taking a look back at this month's sitting of Tynwald. November Tynwald ran on for 3 days. A lot of topics covered, so Phil will be breaking all of that down for you. Chris Kinney will be here live from 6 p.m. with Greatest Hits. At 9, it's time for Brass with Ian Cottier. And then fingers crossed, if the boat makes it back on time, Dave Moore will be with you from 10 with After Hours. And as Alex said earlier, if not, then we'll see what happens. Take care, have a lovely evening, whatever you're doing, and I'll be back with you from 5 p.m. tomorrow.